What do you make of the process from the day they fired Tom Thibodeau to getting to this decision? Did you think the Knicks were? I mean, it seems like they were thorough because of the time they took, but were they as thorough? Like, what do you make of the process that the Knicks had to get to Mike Brown?
Well, their process was such that they knew they wanted to fire Tom Thibodeau, and they did that, and then they didn't have a backup plan. So, well, it's not that they didn't have a backup plan; they didn't have a succession plan, and then they kind of did it on the fly after that. It was we didn't know if these guys are, we didn't know if Billy Donovan is going to be available. We don't know if Jason Kidd's going to be available or Ime Udoka, but let's try. And then, let's cast a wide as net as possible. So let's reach out to Dawn Staley and talk to her just to see what's going on. And
I sense a little bit of shade there, Steph. I sense a little bit of shade.
Well, no, I'm not ever trying to shade Dawn Staley, but
no. I knew. Just to be clear, Steph is not shading Dawn Staley. That's not where the shade was directed. Just in terms of the process is what I was.
Yeah, saying. I mean, I don't really understand. Like, obviously, like due diligence is one thing, but I think when you fire somebody like Tom Thibodeau and you reach the conference finals, then you have a plan in place, and there was not a plan in place.
Yep. That's something that we were talking about before. It felt like, because I thought, and we talked about this as this was going on, I felt like you fired Tom Thibodeau after the season you just had, which for the Knicks was technically historic. You fire him with a plan. And it didn't seem that way, Bondy. Like, you just outlined it. It didn't seem like they actually fired, like, not that it was completely emotional, but it was under, like, all right, we'll canvas everything possible and maybe somebody breaks through. But it didn't end up happening that way. It almost felt, I don't know if disorganized is the right term, but it felt kind of a little bit all over the place until we finally got here. So maybe they found the right guy. Like, this can be true too. Like, Mike Brown could be the right adaptable guy for the situation. He did coach a #1 offense a few years ago on one of the worst franchises in sports in Sacramento. Their defense was terrible, but their offense was great. However, the process in getting here was a little bit weird. I don't know if it's going to matter though if they ultimately just win a bunch of games, but we'll see.
Yeah, and when you look at what happened when they hired Leon Rose and Worldwide West, the thing was, like, these guys know everybody. Like, they're gonna work back channels and figure out everything. They're gonna be 10 steps ahead of everybody. But when with that in mind, you're like, well, then they know, they've talked to people, they know exactly who they're gonna hire if they fire Tom Thibodeau. And I get it. Like, I guess there's a real risk, and if you know you're going to fire somebody, that then you go talk to people about hiring them, then there's a real risk of it getting leaked, and then it becomes a real problem for Tom if he's still coaching and the players. But yeah, it seems like the process was off.
Do you think he's the right guy in terms of having prior experience coaching good teams in the past and things of that nature?
Yeah, I think that it was important for a lot of people in the organization that the next coach comes in with experience. And I do think that's important. I think in any job you're talking about is important. And my job is important. If I started this coaching search and it was my first coaching search covering it, I would have done a shitty job. So, like, I've learned over my 10 coaching searches how this really goes, who to trust, what not to believe, what to believe. And that goes for any profession. And I think a coach who's seen that, been there, done that, whether it's an assistant with the Warriors or an assistant with the San Antonio Spurs, or, as a head coach with the Cavaliers when he was in the 2007 finals. And, more recently he had Sacramento in the playoffs. I think experience matters, and I think it was important. And he had more experience. He literally had more experience than any of these candidates that were available. So, I mean, Mike Malone was available, and, if you go down the line and go to like Jeff Van Gundy, but I don't think there was mutual interest at all there. So if you take some of those guys out of the equation, Mike Brown comes in, he has the most experience out of anybody. If you look at his name, and when I wrote about it originally, in early June, people were like, Mike Brown, what are you kidding me? And I understand that. I mean, it's a retread hire. and it's a retread hire of a guy who's been fired 4 times. So I understand why people aren't enthusiastic about this coaching hire. But I will say that he was somebody on their radar from the very beginning. And the idea that he's a fallback option is somewhat true, only in that they preferred these coaches that were under contract that they could not get. And then once they went through the interview process and started interviewing available head coaches or former head coaches, then they quickly decided that Mike Brown got the edge over Taylor Jenkins. And that's kind of where the wind was blowing after that.
And to piggyback off that, who really led the charge in this hire? Was it a Leon Rose-led decision? Did anybody else have like a large voice in this process?
I couldn't tell you who is the single guy. I mean, I know Worldwide West has a previous relationship with Mike Brown. So he's somebody who I thought of immediately, but I could not tell you definitively which person made this hire.